Hello, everyone. All right, let's stand. I already did 2 rounds, as per usual. Feet shoulder width. Bend the knees to obscure your toes. Not duck-footed, not pigeon-toed. Straight ahead. Turn the hips under by pushing the lumbar out, not squeezing the glutes. Arms in the hugging of the tree position. Remember, there's 3 positions. We start in front of the navel. A light face, right? And breathe in slow through the stomach, expanding into the ribs. And so the breath really is everything, right? But because our body breathes, the body is also the breath, right? Gotta silence that. So, right. Shoulder width, bend the knees, obscure the toes, shoulders down, scapulas flat on the back, right? Basically, you're trying to make your back flat, not just the spine, but everything. See that? It's a little chilly today, so I have to put on my socks. Actually, it's warmed up a lot, but this morning there was frost everywhere. Okay, let us begin. So yeah, that again, right? It's all about the breath. And principle of rhythm, right? Everything breathes, right? The earth expands and contracts. Black holes. Space is real, motherfuckers. Everything, right? So the breath is, I've heard it said, right, that the breath is spirit, right? That's what spirit means. And so when you're breathing like this, and you do that gossamer out breath and in breath, right, with no noise, it's almost like holding your breath. And so it's that inversion of objective, right? You're breathing, but it's a unforced restriction, right? So it asks your body a question, right? Are you there? Is your body there? And yes, it is, because it's the bridge, right? So if breath is spirit, then your body is the bridge to the unseen, to the totality, to source, to everything, to God, if you want to call it that. But God isn't separate, right? That's the misconception, and that's the massive mind fuck, is that God is somehow separate, right? And so get over that shit. It's everything, right? And we are it, right? And so, right, all of the ancient teachings say that. So the title today is provocative, but it's the fucking shit, right? It just came to me. But I'm gonna begin with something lighter, right? And then we'll move on to the subject. But some of y'all might find the subject pretty fucking funny too. Because of how, yeah, fucking be audacious, man. Audacity, right? What other way is there to be? What other way is there to be except audacious, right? And so I got a couple of poems here that I wrote a while back. And I'll just start with this one. I was tussling with a girl. Tussling? Yeah, you know, fooling around. And she stopped kissing me and asked, "What is your end game?" The Autobahn has no speed limit. I always used to think that was so cool. And then I found out the authorities have a way of determining the tread if the tread on your tires is worn too thin, right? My tires are bald, and I go 120 kilometers an hour all the time. Fuck you, authority. If I'm gonna die, it's gonna be my fault. And so that's what we have to say, right? The authority is the demiurge, right? And whoever supports the authority is supporting that false reality. The matrix, as I've said before, is a construct that's built in our mind. It's a program, right? And our mind is where everything starts, right? And so if we were to change how we operate, we would be changing our mind, right? We would be changing our mind. And so if we are identified with the system, right? If we think the system is all there is, right? That the way that we relate to each other, right? Our interactions, the pattern that we exhibit as a society on aggregate, right, is the system. and there's no fixing it with it, right? We can't employ the same models, right, that got us into this situation in the first place, right? That's that quote from Einstein. We can't use the same manner of thinking to solve our problems. If that manner of thinking is what created the problem, right? And so I accidentally said problems in plural, and there are plenty, right? And don't start saying that I'm just complaining, right? And count your blessings. Right? I have plenty of blessings, man. Look at this, right? That's a fucking blessing. Faster, stronger, smarter than yesterday. That's not fucking ego. That's just how it is, right? So I'm very grateful for that. I'm very fucking grateful. And this, it's fucking beautiful, man. Everything is beautiful. Everything is wonderful, except for what isn't. And so, and that's the whole purpose of my output, right? Is the objective is to reset the initial conditions, right, which are in our minds, right? We don't have to go back in time to change anything because it's all right here. And so our preconceived notions are whatever we, right? I've said this before, but just to go over it again because it's important for what I'm going to say in a little while. Right, the whatever people believe in the majority becomes the rules for operation within the system. And so if we go down to the root of our belief structure, right, it is our conception of value. That's what I've arrived at, right, after all of this exploration, is that if we perceive value as limited, then we will operate from that starting point, right? And so then that means that there's a limited supply, and right, that's the model of scarcity. Do I need to fucking describe it again? I don't think so. And the inverse of that, right? And you say, a lot of people say this is naive or whatever, right? Whenever you used to mention this back in the day, right? That war is unnecessary, right? That it's not our nature, right? It's our condition, right? And it's a condition that is treatable because it's based on how we think, right? And our thinking is all based on the past. And so if we want to break out of the pattern that we continually repeat, it's really fucking simple, man. It's not complex at all. All we got to do is invert our conception of value, right? And stop defending ourselves, right? Stop defending our sense of self, our identity, our psychological sense of self, and stopped acting like if I don't take mine, then I will be in danger. And it's actually the inverse is much more fucking true, right? And so that pattern, right, is what we get when we operate from that positioning, right? And when I say the opposite is true, it means that actually, right, if everyone's okay, then you're okay. And it's more than okay, right? It is like the ultimate, right, of living. And yes, to embellish this creation, this the all of creation, that's our purpose, right? And the good living is how you do that, right? That's what we're supposed to do, right? But not at the expense of anyone else. It's imagine right? It's not this like socialism or anything like that, because we are social creatures, right? This is what we do, right? We exchange with each other. Everything that we create is how we live. So we got to, right? Does that make sense? You guys, does that fucking make sense? Um, it's the exchange. That's how we fucking live, right? So I wanted to, I have all these things from Instagram saved, from the Krishnamurti study group and various other pages that post what he says. And so just go through a few of his quotes, and talk about them before we get to the nitty gritty of like the title of this uh, episode, right? And if you guys are waiting for the next episode on the podcast, right, and you want more of me, then here I am, right? I'm right here on YouTube. And yeah, I'm gonna do that episode, right? But yeah, it just has to be divine timing, right? And so today I had this something just came to me, and it is radical. It's fucking radical, right? And so when I say previously in the last two episodes, I was talking about how the principle of gender, right? Stripping away all of our human conceptions and our modern conceptions and the modern conflict about gender at this time, right? We realize that nothing, right, and thing and no thing are a polar relationship that cannot exist without each other, right? And but there is a something to that, is like you can't have a thing first, right? Because then where is that thing, right? Nothing comes first, right? And nothing is the void, is the womb of creation. If a thing is an aspect of creation, then nothing is the womb, right? So the female aspect comes first. um, and now you could say they come into existence together, right? But, right, if you try to put thing into existence first, then there is already nothing, right? Right. And so it's probably an instantaneous time difference, right? Once the creation started, and again, right, once creation started, all potentiality existed at that point, right? But in the 3D dimension, right, of all of creation, because there's multiple dimensions, higher dimensions, that is where, right, the passage of time is observable. Anyway, right? So I just like, that's the prelude to what I'm going to get at in a minute. But so Krishnamurti, to observe what is actually taking place, one must look without the response of the past shaping it, right? So all of our experience gives us either blinders or polarized lenses, right? That's basically what it's saying. That the past colors our perception. And so to actually see something, you have to let go of the past, right? You guys following? Fucking. So yeah, experience is not a factor in liberation, right? If that was the case, then we would have made progress, right? Psychological progress, right? Then all of the Greek philosophers would not be saying the same shit that we hear, right? In the late 60s. Right. And so, like, I was just saying late 60s, right? We have Gore Vidal. You guys look him up, right? Democracy is supposed to give you the feeling of a choice, like painkiller X and painkiller Y, but they're both just aspirin. Right? Right? And so this, all of this stuff is like, um, we've all heard it, and we either acknowledge it and keep going with our lives, or we say that's bullshit, or we try to come up with some kind of contradictory explanation of it, and we just move on, right? And so to actually comprehend, right, something, we have to let go of our conditioning, right, which is the past, right? We have to let go of our thinking in order to actually perceive in a whole manner. So there's this one that's been floating around, ego, right, versus soul, right? So ego is our psychological sense of self, right? And ego isn't not important, right? It's not important. Don't you love a double negative? Fuck yes. Because ego is what keeps you alive in the field, right? It keeps you from walking off the cliff, right? It makes you aware of your surroundings, right? But if you let it drive the bus, it separates you out from the totality, right? And so we know that that's not the actual case. You guys following? So ego seeks to serve self, right? It keeps you alive, right? Soul seeks to serve others. Ego seeks outward recognition. Soul seeks inner authenticity. Ego sees life as a competition, right? And this is that conception of value I was speaking of, right? That if you don't get yours, someone else will get it. Soul sees life as a gift. Ego seeks to preserve self. Soul seeks to preserve others, right? Ego looks outward. Soul looks inward. Ego feels lack. Soul feels abundance. Ego is mortal. Soul is eternal. Ego is drawn to lust. Soul is drawn to love. Ego seeks wisdom. Soul is wisdom. So to seek wisdom is to always be ever, forever seeking, right? And to be wisdom, right? That is that retrocausality that I speak of all the time. Instead of if this, then that, right? It is that, then this, if. We be the effect. We don't try to create we don't try to create the effect by being the cause, right? We be the effect. We already are that. It is already done, right? There's nothing to be done because we are already that. So soul is wisdom. And another way to look at wisdom is action, right? Wisdom is action. It's not some pontificating fucking, some platitudes. Soul is wisdom, right? And so when you're operating from that position, right, then your action is in alignment with the creation. Ego enjoys the prize. Soul enjoys the journey. Ego is cause to pain. Soul is cause of healing. Ego rejects God. Soul embraces whatever, right? I didn't even actually read this whole thing. Ego is me. Soul is we, right? So all of this shit is that we think of as cliche, and we just kind of like, oh, that's cool, and we like file it, right, and just keep moving on. It's actually really fucking important. So back to Krishnamurti. The books say, conform to the pattern and you will be free in the end. Do all these things, obey, and ultimately there will be freedom. To me, that is all nonsense, because freedom is at the beginning, right? Not the end. right? It's not the objective. That's what we are. We are free, right? So we be that. We don't try to become that. We are free, right? Krishnamurti, fucking Krishnamurti. So, okay, right. So, about meditation, right? So that's why I advocate standing, because it tricks you into a meditative state, right? So you don't set out to do it; it just happens. And that's what Krishnamurti says. He says, if you set out to meditate, then you have already hamstrung yourself. It's not an achievement, right? Meditation, here's Krishnamurti. Meditation is not an achievement, nor is it the capture of a vision, nor the excitement of sensation. It is like the river, not to be tamed, swiftly running and overflowing its banks. It is music without sound. It cannot be domesticated and made use of. It is the silence in which the observer has ceased from the very beginning. Yeah. And so on this Qigong, when you do that out breath and you extend upward, allow your spine to separate in the vertical upward, right? Instead of settling on the out breath, you extend upward. And you can do that when you breathe out so slow that it doesn't make a noise. And that action itself creates this silence that you can feel. You can feel the difference. Copy. Fucking A. When beauty is there, every movement and action in every form of relationship is whole, sane, and holy. When that beauty, love, doesn't exist, the world goes mad. So, and that's the urgency, right? All of this fucking shit, man, about an individual journey, like how we're, individually, we come here to learn to fucking manifest or whatever that shit is, to call it an individual journey of the soul is, that's a misnomer. That's actually a contradiction, right? Because what you discover when you know thyself is that there is no separation, right? And that is the disappearance of the observer. Right? That's when the observer becomes the observed, right? That's when the boundary between what you think you are and everything else dissolves, right? And right. So another thing that Krishnamurti says is that when you are, right, when your sense of self is, then God is not, right? Because then you've divided yourself out from the totality. When you are not, right, in a pure state of meditation, then God is, right? And that's the space that I speak of, that you create, right? You let go of your thoughts, which are all the past, all tradition. There's no thinking without the past, right? Because all thoughts are a generation of an accumulation, right? So when you are, God is not. When you are not, God is, right? And that's that space. That's that wonderful silence, right? That permits divine inspiration, right? That's how the new comes into the world. And when we don't do that, when we're always self-referencing, right? Referencing the past, right? That's the self-reference. We repeat the same pattern, right? And that is just a program running, right? So that is our conditioning, right? Operating in each of us, the program, the condition. And what's more boring than just a pressing execute on a program, right? And it's watching it play out, watching all of the NPCs do their thing based on their condition, right? Their program, their initial conditions. That's fucking boring, man. Because, right, as we've seen, you just get the same shit over and over. Love Krishnamurti, right? And so one thing he says is that love is doesn't have a polarity, right? And to claim that it does, right, that it's somehow hate is the polar opposite of love, is an attempt at an ownership of love, right, in which creates conflict. And if you own something, then you've divided it out from everything else, right? And so that creates the polarity. But love is non-dual, right? And so if we were going for a non-duality, right, that's it right there. And it's that silence, right? That is the disappearance, right? The dissolving of the psychological sense of self, right? Pure love. And that's the space, right? That's the emptiness. That's the void. That's the womb of creation, right? Which is what I've been getting at. So, a few more from Krishnamurti. The brain is restless, an astonishingly sensitive instrument. It's always receiving impressions, interpreting them, storing them away. It is never still, waking or sleeping. Its concern is survival and security. The inherited animal response. On the basis of these, its cunning devices are built, within and without. Its gods, its virtues, its moralities are its defenses. Its ambitions, desires, compulsions, and conformities are the urges of survival and security. Being highly sensitive, the brain with its machinery of thought begins the cultivation of time, and yesterdays, the today, and the many tomorrows. Right? Another way to say it, to see what is the ending of that which is, right? This is the space in which the new enters, right? I just looking for Krishnamurti's face. So Krishnamurti wasn't into gurus, right? He's like, if you have it, that's separation, right? And that's idolatry, right? That's worship of an individual that is been elevated and pedestalized, right? And so he was against that shit, right? And so all throughout South Asia or India, right, there's a gurus aplenty, right? And he met with them periodically, right? And so here's something that occurred between him and Anandamai Ma, Anandamai Ma, the most famous of the then living deified mothers, women who in their lifetime transcended the self and became symbols of Sakti, the primordial mother as energy. This is good. With a very large following in North India, came to meet Krishnamurti. Krishnaji, that's what, I don't know, I guess is one of his other names. They met in the garden as the mother never entered the home of a householder. She did not speak English and spoke through a translator. She had a radiant, smiling presence. She said that she had seen a photograph of Krishnaji many years before and that knew that he was very great. She asked him, "Why do you deny gurus? You who are the guru of gurus." This was translated to him. He replied, "People use guru as a crutch. Use the guru as a crutch." "People come to listen to you in the thousands," she said. That means you are a guru. He held her hand gently and did not answer. Many visitors came and prostrated themselves at the feet of K and Anandama. Anandama accepted their greetings, but Krishnamurti was embarrassed. As always, he would not permit them to bow down, but sprang to his feet and bent down to touch the feet of the seeker of the blessing. Later, after Anandama left, Krishnamurti spoke of her with warmth and affection. There had been communication, though much of what it had been wordless. He was, however, horrified at the prostrating, hysterical women followers who surrounded her. In my notes of the period, I have recorded the visit of an old blind sannyasi who spoke only Hindi. The sannyasi asked Krishnamurti about freedom from the bonds of the body and mind. Someone translated. Krishnamurti answered with passion and intensity, and the sannyasi seemed to understand, although in his public talks Krishnamurti castigated the wearers of the robe. Deep within him, he had always felt an immense kinship for the person who wore the robe. In his early years, there is evidence that at times he had thought of becoming a sannyasi. Awakening to its implications, he had not done so, but a special tenderness for the true sannyasi or the Buddhist monk remained, and he never refused to meet them, however tired he was. His criticism of their rituals, disciplines, and practices, however, were devastating. Fucking devastating. Yeah, because it's a division, right? And so all division is a problem. I'll just do a few more here before I get to what I was going to say. All theologies and philosophies are immature. They are inventions of human caught in a prison of his own making, right? So that's self-reference. Self-reference, right? Inventions, right? And then referencing those inventions ad infinitum. It is the nature of the petty mind to belong to something, right? All of this tribbing up that we have right now, in your camp, or right, and then your camp has its own opposition, and then you're defined by the opposition. And what happens in that case? It's a polar relationship. It's a polar relationship, right? So you are defined by what you resist, by what you are against, right? And that's nothing could be. No better example of that is, like the two-party system. Do I need to explain it? Freedom from the known can take place only when one has observed the whole phenomenon of working in the field of the known. Right? So it's this observation of our relationships, right? And freedom from it, right, is a negation of that, right? There is no individual without the collective, right? Because human beings cannot exist without the other, right? We cannot exist without each other. But the way that we exist, our relationship, right, is the known, right? And so to enter into the unknown, to be free of the known, right? You have to, it's the apophatic inquiry, apophatic inquisition, right? Which is discovering what we are by knowing what we are not. So I'll just do one more. Intelligence is not discernment and judgment or critical evaluation, right? This is intelligence as opposed to intellect, right? Intellect is a left brain phenomenon, right? And intellect and cunning go hand in hand, right? Intelligence is using your full perception apparatus, right? The entire fucking thing, right? Intelligence is not discernment and judgment or critical evaluation. Intelligence is the seeing of what is. The what is constantly changing. And when the seeing is anchored in the past, the intelligence of seeing ceases. Then the dead weight of memory dictates the action and not the intelligence of perception. Meditation is the seeing of all that is at a glance, right? It's that instantaneous knowing, the flipping of the switch. And to see, there must be silence. And from the silence, there is action, which is entirely different from the activities of thought. He was born in like 1890 something, right? Somewhere around there. He spent his whole life speaking all over the world. And near the end, he wasn't bitter. He was never bitter, but he was. He would get disappointed. Disappointed. So I advise y'all to stick around to the end, because did you read the title, motherfuckers? What, you don't want to find out what that's about? Okay, I was going to do one more, right? The first step is the last step, right? The first step is the last step, says Krishnamurti. The first step is the step of clear perception. And that clear act of clear perception is the last act. When you see danger, a serpent, that very perception is complete action. We said the first step is the last step. The first step is to perceive. Perceive what you are thinking. Perceive your ambition. Perceive your anxiety. Perceive your loneliness, your despair, the extraordinary sense of sorrow. Perceive it without any condemnation, justification, without wishing it to be different. Just perceive it as is. When you perceive it as it is, then there is a totality, different, totally different kind of action taking place. And that action is the final action. That is when you perceive something as being false or as being true. That perception is the final action, which is the final step. And it's right, yeah, you could spend your whole life trying to get there, and you will get there. You could, but it's when you get there, you realize that you just flipped a switch. All of that previous action, not action, all of that previous study, practice was unnecessary. Truth cannot be through any path. It is a pathless land. You can't go through any system, any method, any form of meditation to reach it. There is really no reaching it. It simply is. So, right, if we were going to make this transformation, it's like that's why I'm really optimistic, right? Because there's no journey to be taken. Right? It's just flipping the switch. And so what did I call this fucking thing? This episode? This stand to gather. Thank you, Flight Risk. I said bitches save the world. Right? And so like when I said in the previous 2 episodes that y'all, right? The ball's in your court. And it wasn't a judgment. It's in all of our courts, right? It's up to all of us, right? But there's this because the void is first, because the female aspect of creation comes marginally before the male aspect, right? Because nothing has to exist for a thing to occupy that space, right? The womb of creation is the void. And so that we have to create all of us, right? We have to negate, right, who we think we are, right, to create the space for something new to enter, right? And that is, instead of like how Jordan Peterson says, clean your room, that's not it, right? It's clean your mind, right? That is what it creates, that space, right? The letting go of our identities, of who we think we are and how it should be done, blah, 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 tradition, thought, right? It's all self-reference. So yes, all of us have to create that space, right? And that's that psychological transformation, right? And at that point, right, then we can operate with intelligence and take action. And that action is wisdom, right? That action is not based on the past or tradition. That action is based on divine inspiration, right? So when you let go of who you think you are, when you are not, then God is, right? And that's when something new can enter your mind, right? And because we live through exchange, right? Each of us has all of these gifts that we're born with, right? And we use those to exchange value with others, right? And so it's not that we don't now do what our nature is, right? It's just that the action that we take is in alignment. So we all create the space, right? We all make that psychological transformation. And so, but then what then, right? So if we do that, then we all take action with wisdom, right? Or our action is based on intelligence at that point, right? The intelligence of all of creation, right? Of, of the divine, that's that ever-present origin, right? And we rewrite the code of the universe, basically. And what was meant to be was always there, right? It always exists. So, right, freedom is not the objective. We don't become free. We are free. Right. And so that's probably enough, right? Is all of us making that psychological transformation, right? But no, because not all of us are going to flip the switch at once. Would that be the case? Wouldn't that be nice, right? If that were the case, if we could all do that, right? And learning the hard way, it doesn't do it either, right? Well, we've seen that before already. That because after a collapse, we repeat the same pattern again. And in fact, that is the pattern: is this growth, right? So the exchange is the economy, right? And so we see this growth and then collapse and then growth and collapse, right? It's a discontinuous pattern, and it's a pattern that repeats itself over and over and over. And so we can have a smooth fucking, we can destroy that discontinuity, right? Right. And so each of us create this space, right? And when we do that, we're actually allowing that nothingness, right, to enter, right? We're letting go of the past, letting go of our intellect, right? Our own, how smart we think we are in order to operate with universal intelligence. So when I say bitches save the world, it's just like, yeah, what is it that we can do, right? If we could all fucking flip that switch at once, then we could all be operating with intelligence, but that's not the case. And so we kind of need to set the example. And because the female aspect of creation, right? Does that make sense to you guys, that it comes marginally before the male aspect? Because a thing cannot exist unless nothing is there first, right? So here's the fucking deal. I just fucking thought of this, and I think it's fucking radical because this is where I've been going, right? I didn't know where it was going, but this is it, perhaps. Like, what action, right? What action to take in order to actually transform this thing, right? In order to remove the canceling out of the good, right? So yeah, just to backtrack a little bit, real fast, right? If you listen to my episode 11, right, that's how our system operates, right? Is that the exchange that we have is corrupted because it's not based on living, right? It's based on death, right? It is creating value through sacrifice, right? And that's not necessary. That's what we've been doing since the fall, right? The fall of man, you could say. Is that this sacrifice actually revalues the exchange, right? The currency, right? So when there's too much money in circulation, then the money loses its value, right? And in order to revalue the fucking currency, there has to be fucking a massive removal of value from the system, right? And that makes it so that the authority can extract that value, right? So it's not based on living. It's an unnatural exchange. It's based on death. And if you listen to episode 11, it should make sense, right? Because it's paid protection. It's the way to explain it, right? The only way that we would pay for protection is if there's a threat, right? And so the only way to maintain that system is to maintain a constant threat. And so that's what our system does, right? And so this threat of death, right, is what revalues the death currency. Make sense? So yeah, we can't fix that with that, right? And so there has to be a new thing, right? And so what action do we take, right? We have to abandon that, right? And so in order to create the space for that, right? All y'all females, and males too, right? But show me a motherfucking male. Show me a man, right? Who isn't identified. Show me one, right? Who hasn't identified with the system, right? What are you gonna say? It's some guru or something? Mm-mm. He's charging $6,000 to teach you to meditate. And so that's that defeats it right there, right? Anyway, so I'm just saying, right, that there is an urgency, right? That there is just raising your individual vibration so that you can transcend to a 5D, right, is not it, right? That's division, right? That's a division again. That's your individual fucking process, right? It's like, I'm going up, but see y'all later, right? Good luck down there. And no, so to learn, actually, we learn collectively, right? And to go into the unknown, right? To actually learn something new, right? That's a collective endeavor as well. And so this individual fucking ascension is shite. And yeah, you can raise your vibration. 444 when I said that. You can raise your vibration, right? That's fine, right? Being grateful, all of that shit is fucking great. Fucking, I'm just saying that there's this collective aspect that everyone seems to be ignoring. Like, we're either trying to fix the system with the system, you know, like elections and shit. It's so fucking retarded. Or we are all woo woo, right? And I'm ascending to the 5D. And so what I want to say is that there's actually something that we can do so that we can collectively learn, right? Because our behavior on aggregate is the pattern that society or civilization exhibits. And so yeah, since we are all one, right, then we do it all together, right? That's the objective. That's what that's what we're supposed to be here to do, right? We don't just come here to learn how to have a good life and then fucking never come back again, you know, because I learned how to do it now and I'm never coming back, you know. Some of us come back here for a fucking reason, right? I didn't come here just to have a good life and die, right? I came here for a fucking reason, and all y'all did too, right? And so we create that space, right? I've been living on the periphery, and so my room ain't clean, but my fucking mind is, right? Uh, and so I want to be the effect, right? I'm being the effect that creates the cause, and it's for all of us, right? It's to serve, and but I can't do it alone, right? And if females, right? I'm not. It's a very tricky subject because I'm saying, yeah, it's up to y'all, but it's up to all of us. But to create this space, right? This space for the new to enter, right? Um, we have to extricate ourselves from this corrupt system. And if there was this wave of women, right, who started to do it, right, then there would be no fucking choice for everyone else, right? The women are the value, right? So first we create that that space is defined by women, right? And it's so fucking valuable that it is attractive to the rest, right? To the dumb motherfucking males. But how do we do that, right? How do we do that in a practical way? And this is what I'm saying. Fucking bitches save the world. Um, this is something practical. This is an action that can be taken, right? But it takes women saying fuck you to the authority and fuck you to the system and fuck you to all you dumb motherfuckers, you know, to pull out, right? Women pull out, pull out, right? That's that inversion. Um, and so that all of us would have no choice but to come over, right? Come over with you. So here's the fucking deal, right? And see how I'm of service, right? Um, I don't want, right? Like I've already said, this isn't about me becoming wealthy, right? I want to have the resources, right, to be most effective for sure, right? But all right, just clean that out. Clean whatever I want out, right? The idea is this, right? Women create a trust, right? And we're not using the system to fix the system. We're backdooring the motherfucker, right? Uh, Women create a trust, right? And they all are managing directors, right? And they pool money and invest to create a fucking the nourishment for the womb, right? This creates the womb. This creates the space for creation, right? And that's what the dance between male and female. That's the alchemical marriage, right? It's a dance between male and female. That's creation, right? So we create this space that can nourish the creative, right? And that's what we do. We exchange fucking stuff that we make. So that's it right there. It's pretty fucking simple. Women create a trust. They all become managing directors. They pool their resources and force multiply the resources, right? Right, and then they recruit other women, and then you have this space that has the nourishment for creation, right? And then for and we all have a male and female aspect. I'm not saying it's just women do this, although it requires them to kind of do it together on their own without fucking males at first, right? In order to create that value attraction, right? That value well, that unresistible value well. irresistible well of value, right? Yeah, you create a bank, right? And you don't fucking lend money at interest. You invest in fucking creative ideas, right? And I have a fucking warehouse of ideas, right? And not just me, there's a lot of people, right? But these ideas that are unprecedented, right? And so for what I've been thinking about, and this is where I began, which is to redesign our manufacturing system, right? To distribute the means of production throughout the population again, as it was before industrialization, right? So that's it. I'll try to explain it better later, but that's it. Women create a trust. They all are managing directors, and they just compound their fucking resources, right? And permit this creative activity, right? That no one is barred from, but you have to pay to enter at first, right? And so you subscribe to the output of this creative source, right? This value well, right? And so the value just fucking increases and it does not stop. It's exponentially growing constantly. And this is the abundance value model of value. Right. So you create that space for women, you create this fertile land, right? This fertile ground, right? This fecund area. And since like I'm a male, right? I'm a man, and I have this conception of an infrastructure for creation, right? And so right, you guys create the area, the space, and I will be the lone swimmer at first, and then right, in order to create the structure, right? Because I have the image of the structure in my mind, I have the vision, right? And it's it is this, right? There has to be this like male aspect to this. Just a space is not enough for creation, right? There has to be this I mean, I'm trying to avoid the fucking sexual fucking words, but that's basically what it is. And that's why there is the principle of gender in the first place, because it is this alchemical marriage that creates all things, right? And so we return, right? We reestablish the sacred exchange, right? You all create the space, and then we all fucking fertilize it with ideas, right? With creative ideas, and then the output is first of all, the thing itself is new, right? So the space in our mind is created, then y'all create the nourishment for creation, right? And then everyone enters and attempts their own, right? Submits their own personal output, or an idea for a collective, an item that benefits the collective, So there's this individual aspect, and so like people, like writing a book, right? That's your individual output, right? Making jewelry, doing art, right? That's all on the outer level, right? For this infrastructure of creation, right? But as you approach the center of this like mandala like structure, right? Which is the vision that I have, right? As you go each layer in, it's more, all the output of each layer is more beneficial to the collective, or something that is more general, right? And so the center is the output of the center is things like um, um, you know, transportation and energy, right? And free energy, right? Because we have that capability, right? So the idea is that it's a structure that permits the creation of the new instead of staying with the old and suppressing everything new. So in my mind, I was fucking nervous when I fucking came up with this before I started to get butterflies. I was like, am I even gonna fucking say this shit? Because, all right, yeah, I guess I am, right? Because actually, this is where I've been coming to, right? This is everything I've been saying has been leading to this, right? Women create a trust. They're all managing directors. They grow the resources exponentially, and then they fund fucking creation, right? The creation of the new. And right, right. Say something, y'all. Fucking ladies, come on now. So I will attempt to talk about this with women on the podcast. That's why I've been delaying on that. I want it to be kind of slick, right? And I want more than one woman. But I also will try to formulate more what it is, because actually I've been thinking about this network, right? The exchange network. It's a hardware subscription, basically. You subscribe to the output of everyone, right? And so you create these value wells that are distributed around the whole planet, right? A well of value that is so irresistible because value is what attracts people, right? And in our current system, we have perception of value. And so with marketing and fucking, you can throw money at an idea and create the perception of value, but it's really not valuable because of the waste and right. You can package something and make it look fucking valuable, but it's just shit, And so it's just pure value, pure output of value. Yeah, I mean, I got all excited. I forgot to mention in the beginning, like how excited I was. Like my heart was thumping and fucking my stomach was turning over because I was like, "Whoa, shit! This is it. This is fucking it. This is how we do it, right?" But yeah, lead the way, right? Create a trust, managing directors, grow the fucking resources, supply the nutrients for the creation of the new, right? And no one gets barred from entry. There's no fucking, it's not a meritocracy. It's a competition of ideas, not fucking people, right? If you lose, you don't fucking lose everything, right? The value of the competition of ideas is fucking great, right? But the losing idea doesn't die, right? The people who work on that don't die. They don't lose their life savings, right? Because that's that interplay of the best way to do something, right? The competition of arriving at the best way to do something doesn't kill the one who didn't come up with the best way to do it. In fact, probably the winning product or whatever it is fucking absorbs that other team, right? So you start out on the outside, right? And it's not like you go to school in order to fucking have a specialization, right? It's whatever you're drawn to, you fucking do it, right? And you learn while you're going. And as you don't have to go towards the center, but if you do, your knowledge is just going to be increased, right? Because you won't be able to do these general projects, these projects that benefit everyone, right? Unless you have the knowledge to do so. And so every level deep that you go in, you get more knowledge, right? And so yeah, this outer layer is like this individual output, right? That everyone can do already right now, right? So we're all doing podcasts. We're all fucking trying to produce shit. We're all writing our book, or we're all fucking, painting on a canvas, or making jewelry or whatever, right? That's all stuff we can just do on that, right? With our own stuff. But look, a lot of us need tools in order to do that, and right, and that's that general aspect, right? Um, the best tools, right? No fucking tiered products, only the best products, right? Tiered products are such a waste of resources, right? Poor people, right, have to buy boots that they can afford so they can buy food for their kids. But then they end up, over their fucking working career, they end up spending way more on fucking footwear than a rich person does, because they buy the best fucking product the first time. You know, it's like no tiered products, right? I read a book called the Chess Garden, and in it talked. There was a concept around the good spoon, right? It's like in our kitchen, we all have a preference, right? We want the good thing to do what we're doing. We don't want the piece of shit, right? Tiered products are a fucking joke, and it's just for profit, right? And even the high dollar products now are fucking cheap, right? All it is it's just a branding, perceived value, right? Marketing and packaging. See what I'm getting at, right? See what I'm getting at. Anyway, guess I'll call it. I can't believe I spoke for so long, but I wanted that to be more cogent, right? But it's hard to fucking spit out because it's a difficult subject, right? It's like basically saying, all y'all women, it's kind of up to you. Take that first step, because it kind of is, because it's like fucking Spike Lee. Despite that being kind of fucking a cheap shot, Chirac or Chirac or whatever, however you say that movie, he was on point with the idea, right? He was just saying all of the ladies stop busting out until the dudes stop gang banging. Right? It's kind of the same concept, right? You ladies pull out of this bullshit system, right? And we'll all come running. We'll fucking come running. Anyways, till next time, you guys, much love, and we'll talk to you soon.